Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our full council this evening. It's good to see you all here. I understand that Councillors Ahmed and Collins are likely to be joining us on Zoom, but they don't seem to have arrived at the moment. We have two members of the public wishing to speak in the public session. I'm going to ask Simon Mallet to speak first. Thank you, Simon.
Can I go now? Yeah. Okay. So just to say thank you to Councillor Harvey and Councillor Suchbury for inviting me along tonight, which was following an email I sent out a couple of weeks ago. The reason for me speaking is that you have the McDonald's 24-hour licence on the agenda tonight, and it's been suggested that it might be helpful for me to explain what happened at the subcommittee meeting where the licence was approved, mainly because I took part as an objector. So I'm going to try and do my best. I live right next to London Road and about 150. Sorry?
So if you turn your video off, we might be able to hear you. I think it has.
But you are correct about the video. Yeah.
Shall I carry on?
It's not me to
Can you hear us, Simon?
Barely. Do you want me to carry on?
Right. We can hear you then. If you could perhaps please.
Turn off the video, it'd be better.
Okay, yeah, I can do that. There we go. Okay, so I live right next to London Road, about 150 metres from the Tesco site. I objected to the McDonald's 24-hour licence based on the late night antisocial behaviour we experienced when the superstore was open for 24 hours, which ended around 4 years ago. This was mainly noise from the car park, plus from some noise from London Road, usually after pub closing. I thought an important point to note about the licence application is that it wasn't just for a drive-through. McDonald's do plan to open the restaurant for eating food 24 hours as well. Not many people have spotted that. Had it just been a drive-through, I probably would have felt differently. But when I was putting together the objection, I looked up the relevant regulations and found the 2003 Licensing Act, plus the council's own statement of licensing policy, which is from 2015. And then in the licensing officer's report to the subcommittee, she confirmed those two pieces of legislation as being the relevant policies, and specifically picked out paragraph 6.6 from the council's own licensing policy. And the report says section 6 of the adopted licensing policy contains a specific terminal hours policy that applies to Buckingham town centre. It states that the council will take the following approach: all applications to open beyond 01:30 AM will be refused. It then goes on to say in the report, Appendix 2 explains the reasons behind the above, referencing the large student population and giving examples of late night disturbance on exit routes from the town centre. So you can imagine after reading this, it looked like it would be pretty straightforward for the committee to refuse the licence, or at least restrict it to say 12:30 or 01:30, which is about the best result I expected, to be quite honest with you. But one thing did surprise me was that in the same report, it also said that the licensing authority, which is the council itself, had no objection to a 24-hour license. And I found that a little bit confusing. And I wondered if maybe the Mcdonald's site was exempt because it was outside the town centre. So on the Monday before the meeting, I emailed the licensing officer and I asked for a clarification on that. I also asked a second question, which was, if paragraph 6.6 applies to McDonald's, why haven't you raised an objection? And the reply I got was that, yes, terminal hours does cover McDonald's. And the reason we don't have an objection will be explained at the meeting. So when it came to the meeting, we learned the reason early on, and it's that the council's legal team now think that paragraph 6.6, the 0130 AM clause, is unlawful or likely to be unlawful, depending on who you ask. On top of this, we were also told that the 2015 policy has limited weight now because in October, the main licensing committee had agreed a new draft policy, which strikes out terminal hours for Buckingham. And I think that new policy is due to be voted on by the full council later this week. So the result is that the licensing committee, I think they felt unable to refuse a license. McDonald's sent a hotshot barrister down, one of the country's top licensing experts from FTB Chambers in London. And he effectively told them that McDonald's would throw the book at the council if they refused. So the decision notice was actually issued on 10th November, as you probably know, and McDonald's can trade 24 hours from the day they open next month. And the result is obviously that the terminal hours policy for Buckingham is now defunct. My complaint about what happened, which I've actually made in writing, is that I think I was misled. I've also criticised the text of the decision notice, which I think is very poorly written for a legal document. It's full of factual errors, actually. The replies I've had admit the wording is poor, but basically say, if you disagree with the decision or how you were treated, you can launch an appeal via the magistrates. We can do nothing until you do that. So my feeling is that how I was treated is a bit of a side issue, really. Even if everything had been done correctly, the committee would probably still have permitted the licence. In short, the outcome was determined by the new draft policy, which was agreed in October by the main licensing committee.
Mr. Mallet, we've got another member of the public, and we only have 15 minutes for the public session.
Okay, I've got.
Thank you for raising those issues. Have you got something else in addition you wanted to say?
No, that's it. If I could just thank the council for allowing me to speak. I hope that was useful, and I'll sign off now. Thank you.
If you want to wait on and watch our discussion of that, I'm going to suggest to councillors we bring that item forward. But we do need to hear from the other member of the public first. So if you want to wait and listen, you're very welcome to do so.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Grimsdale.
May I remain seated? Okay, my legs aren't great. I've got 2 points to make, basically. One is subsidiary to the other. I oppose the idea of having this McDonald's open all night. But I do think the important issue is localism. That the decision should be informed at the very least and will stem from this body. Why? I've got 5 points to make. Buckingham is not suitable to be a 24/7 town. How do you know that? Remember Tesco? Dave Lewis, I think his name was, in 2016, shut the Buckingham superstore the nighttime hours because he said there is insufficient footfall during these hours, and furthermore, the increase in online shopping will exacerbate that situation in the future. He didn't just close Buckingham, did he? He closed 74 other similar stores for a very good reason. So if anybody wants to open it up all night, they have that in front of them. It's a dire warning. You're pouring your money down the drain McDonald's. Secondly, Buckingham is a market town with increasing dormitory town aspects in its outer suburbs. By dormitory town, I mean a place where people come back to recreate, to sleep, but during the day they tend to work, earn their living elsewhere, and probably do other things. It's many of them work in Milton Keynes. But I think it's also important that all towns, including market towns, identify their own role in life. Have you been to other towns where you've got identical shops with identical goods? And very often, oh, this is only 50% of our offer, Mr. Grimstone. The rest you can get online. So what's the point of going to Bicester? Same old goods, can't get them, but you can order them online, sir. We must recognise that situation. The nighttime economy is in opposition to our need to cool this planet down. You're lighting your heating rooms 24/7 perhaps, instead of 12 hours. All that heat often is made and creates carbon dioxide, which goes into the atmosphere, poison the atmosphere, creating greater heat. We probably need to live sensibly all at the same time in an economy. If we all stay up all night, or a percentage of us do, we'll have the street lights on. You know, these street lights around the bypass in Buckingham go off at a sensible time, don't they? Buckingham closes down. The taxis go home at about 1 o'clock, 1:30. Milton Keynes is open 24/7. It's only 12 miles away. If you want to go to a nightclub, there are many. You can go and live 24 hours a day. But very few many people come to live in Buckingham because it's not open 24/7. They don't get over all of the traffic around the bypass all night. I can hear that very well because I have a river between me and the bypass, and the sound gets reflected. I get woken up at 5:30 every morning by the traffic, and I like that. But I don't want it all night. I like to sleep. And now I come to my final, most important thing. This is a loyal and ancient borough. It's full of people with experience, and the town had experience. This unitary authority in Buckinghamshire is a new boy on the block. And so what it's been doing over the last year or so in terms of garden waste management and other issues shows it insensitive, and it divides rules. There are times when it's appropriate to give the head, give the lead to the local people who know what's best for their borough, town or village. I think their attitude is, to use a French term, les majesté, to the loyal and ancient borough. It was people like you in this room who were third in the procession when Mary Tudor was crowned Queen. Why? Because we stood up for our beliefs, and the rest of the country thought, jolly good. They deserve the credit. You deserve the credit for managing this town well. I know you can do it. Buckinghamshire needs to know you can do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grimstone. Thank you, Mr. Mallet. We'll now move on to apologies for absence. And any declarations of interest? No, in which case, our councillors' mind
Just apologies. Councillor Collins and Ahmed did indicate they couldn't attend physically, but were hoping to attend by Zoom. So if they do attend by Zoom, the meeting might want to agree to suspend standing orders to allow them to speak, but obviously not allowed to vote as the meeting goes on.
Okay. People happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay. And are we happy to proceed to item 9, so to enable our members of the public to be aware of what we're discussing? Thank you. Is it on? Okay, so we'll move on to McDonald's 24-hour licensed premises application land adjacent to the Tesco store. And we've had a report from the town clerk about the correspondence between him and the licensing authority. Councillor Cole, I believe you wanted to speak on this matter.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, thank you very much to the town clerk for this report. You need to consider this in tandem with the BP Garage Buckingham Simply Foods application, which I'll be representing the council at the appeal at Milton Keynes Magistrates Court on December the 10th. They're basically for the same reason that this Buckingham internal hours policy that was created in 2013, I believe with the help of our friend Councillor Warren White, was to stop unsocial drinking behaviour in the town during the night. That policy, as of tonight, is still the existing policy in Buckingham. It hasn't changed. There's been proposals by the licensing committee to the Buckinghamshire Council that should be changed, but that wouldn't happen if it does until the 24th, which is later this week. So the thrust of our argument about the BP garage is that decision to allow that and to deviate from the policy was done 6 months before any change to that policy. So that in itself is illegal. And they departed from that policy, representing a significant change to the use of Buckinghamshire Town Centre, contrary to the express views of Shire and Town Councillors, the Salvation Army, and many residents. And as the clerk has pointed out in the report, when the licensing committee met to consider the removal of the policy, they were not advised that the Town Council opposed the removal of the policy, or even the Town Council expressed a view, which is totally perverse. As Mr. Grimsdale said tonight, we represent Buckingham. Buckinghamshire Council and Aylesbury don't represent Buckingham, we do. We have a policy. We would like to fight that policy change. We may not get it, but both these applications, BP and the McDonald's ones, the decision has been taken in advance of that policy being ended. So in law, that's not correct. That's what we'll be fighting the BP one over, and I propose tonight that we do the same with the McDonald's application on the grounds of lack of consultation and changing a policy which has been in existence now for 8 years without any recourse to us. We should appeal that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's a proposal from Councillor Cole to appeal this decision. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Davies or first? So that motion is on that proposal's on the table. Who'd like to speak? Councillor Bogan and Councillor White and Councillor Studbury. Councillor in that order then. Councillor Bogan.
Right, thank you. When I got the email from the clerk, I did do my research and read up on what the issues were. Now, the first thing I'll say, having looked at the act itself, is towards the licensing authority. The council's policy, right, which I see is still in existence and was referred to in the presentation or at the committee level when it was debated. I would like to seek guidance from the clerk to base on the foundation of that policy in line with the Licensing Act 2003 as to who licensing authorities. Running from that, I would also like to know, I think I did get information as to what was before towards the committee when we were deciding to maintain the restriction or not, what additional evidence we put forward to support our policy. Because I think if we know who the licensing authority is, that will let us know the standing of our policy. And I stand to be corrected, right? I'm concerned that if we proceed, and I do not want to, so I've sensed the should I say the right word to use, I sense a mood in the room, and I do sympathise with both residents who have listened to carefully. But I think we need to understand our standings first. Who is the licensing authority? On what basis was our policy established? And is our policy still standing in law as we speak? That would enable council to have a good understanding as to if we should get built up. I'm happy to come back on that.
Town Clerk, can you comment?
So I think if I'm answering the right question, so Buckinghamshire Council is the licensing authority, we're not the licensing authority, but the policy in question, the nighttime hours policy for Buckingham, is not a town council policy, that's a Buckinghamshire Council policy as well. So we were consulted by Buckinghamshire Council or asked by Buckinghamshire Council for view on their policy. We fed back to them about their policy, but it's for them to own that policy and to act in accordance with their policy.
So can I just chip in on that briefly? It would have been, ABDC would have been the licensing authority at the time that the terminal hours policy was invoked, and when the unitary authority came to be, it all went over to Buckinghamshire Council, so therefore Buckinghamshire Council have taken over all those duties and responsibilities from ABDC, and now therefore the grandfather rights and the as the licensing authority.
As they've taken over, they took over all the policies, not just this one.
Yeah.
Did you want to come back on that issue?
Yes. So the reason why I asked that question, and thank you for the clarification, is based on the decision itself. The town council, which is us, can be consulted in considering this policy. And from what I see, and from what I sense, we were consulted.
Can we not have extra conversations going on, please? It's very distracting.
We were consulted, but it's obvious that there was insufficient evidence. And that's the part that I think we need to work on, as opposed to going immediately on a pill. It's what evidence have we put forward, or are we putting forward to support our policy to ensure that it is maintained. And I think I'll press that.
Thank you. So, Councillor White, next.
Thank you. As Councillor Cole has said, I've had a long interest in our nighttime economy and the licensing situation in Buckingham. And I recall many a meeting in the old jail with Mike Smith and the Neighbourhood Action Group, where we were looking at all sorts of issues about the nighttime economy, the role of the university, the role of licensed premises, and in particular. All of that resulted in the APDC, as it was then, policy for having the terminal hours, which was quite stringent, but I think most people agree that it transformed Buckingham back into a quiet market town overnight. And going back to the points made by Mr. Grimsdale and Councillor Cole. So, whilst I am a firm believer in the free market, I think we do have to have the right controls in small market towns where we have unusual circumstances. And in Buckingham, we do have unusual circumstances where we have a relatively large, in proportion to the population, university and younger population. And we have quite a large town centre population too. So for me, the existing policy is still in place, as Councillor Cole quite rightly says. The Buckinghamshire Council Committee appears not to have heard the voices of Buckinghamshire councillors and Buckingham Town Council properly. Therefore, they could not consider wholly the evidence which my colleague has already mentioned. They didn't consider all the evidence that they had available. They also didn't seek evidence should there have been perhaps confused by some of the concerns being raised by Buckingham specifically. I'm also told, as of last week, that whilst Thames Valley did obviously respond as a force, they never bothered to contact the local neighbourhood policing teams. And of course, they may or may not have been useful in what they gave, information they gave, because of course they do change over time, but they at least would have understood the situation that we're currently in. So I'm quite happy to support the motion that we appeal this, but I also do think that following the correspondence that the town clerk has been under, that we reiterate our concerns that due process has not been followed by the statutory committee, the licensing committee. I'm concerned that my own personal submissions have been ignored as well, but that's another matter which I've already taken up with the head of legal. And I believe that the new draft policy that is being heard on the 24th of this month also isn't wholly sound because it hasn't wholly taken into consideration local feedback and consultation responses from Buckingham councillors, so Buckinghamshire councillors and Buckingham Town Council, and as I mentioned, Thames Valley Police. So for those reasons, I'm very happy to support the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Stutchbury.
Nothing been said by Councillor White to public members on this that I would disagree with, and Councillor Mark Cole. Councillor Mark Cole put over the points to do with the legal veracity of the elements around this change. That being the fact that we have a case going which they knew was going, and the fact that the decision, none of them are in line. A local authority, being a new authority, does have the right to amend its policies. But we also have the right to be consulted, and we also have the right to have our representations heard. Now, Councillor White, when he said the local taking heard, is absolutely right. When he says about the local member being Buckinghamshire members, we sit here as town councillors, he's absolutely correct. There is no seeking our view in what I call a coordinated way. This isn't a political issue, this is a social dynamic issue about the town centre economy and how it works. There is a danger that with the agenda item being on the 24th, and many of the members will see that agenda item as an organised piece of agenda which has got to be going voted through. Councillors present can speak against it, and we can make representations to it. There's a danger when that policy is agreed that then becomes like the Vale Plan. We had this with the Vale Plan when we had applications. You remember that it had weight. All we ever heard, it had weight against anything we said. This is true. It's not about the application from Mcdonald. It's about a bigger question here. And let's not get McDonald's and whether we want to eat McDonald's or not eat McDonald's confused. It's about localism, as Mr. Grimsdown said. It's about having a local input into the future of the community. I don't think the case has been made strong enough by the councils for changing their policies. I don't think they've come to us with the reasons why they want to do it and demonstrate the economic uplift to the community and how it would change the community for the better. What we have to be aware of, the unfortunate situation that the background of this change will take place in. We haven't got the police numbers we once had in North Buckinghamshire to police the nighttime economy, and that let's not get into issues about why we haven't got that. We just haven't got it, and that's going down avenues for another day. But if something happens awry, the likelihood of it being able to be sorted out very quickly is nil to non-existent. So I think that they should at least have done an impact assessment of the change, what the change would mean, and done a deep study. As Councillor White pointed out, and he was right when he said that there was all the work with Councillor Smith and that within the done on that work to advise them, and all that consultation work was to no avail. Funny because the Vale's gone, hasn't it, to no avail. So even though we had a problem with the Vale, they did take note of what we said on a local dynamic. If appears that this is a heavy burden and instrument of oversight from Buckmanship Council, missing out the very dynamic, which is the best thing about Buckinghamshire. We are all diverse and different in different communities. And I haven't seen a case made that this is going to improve Buckingham. A few people may earn some more money out of it temporarily, but I do think the unease that it will cause, and what the onset of this would be, is the very thing that Councillor White premised in his earlier thing, which is the elements about the BP garage, returns back to us. That question returns back to us. We've got an investment in the case through Councillor Mark Cole. It undermines the case. So the case which is going to court effectively is being changed in due process before it's been heard. And I don't know how that figures out in law. So a case is going there, the law is changed by a local authority while they knew there was a case taking place. I'm not a lawyer, but it doesn't seem natural and it doesn't seem just. So all the points.
Thank you.
You didn't interrupt the council lady.
Because you've 3 minutes is up, I think.
I think you came back. Okay, well, my 3 minutes is shorter than other people's 3 minutes. But we'll remember that.
Thank you. Councillor Mordew, then Councillor Cole.
When the policy was brought in by Buckingham Town Council, it was as a result of the drinking of alcohol in the town centre. So we brought in that policy to restrict the sale of alcohol and consequently some undesirable behaviour within the town centre. And I'm all for that, and I'm for that still. With McDonald's, I don't think that anyone in the best skin in the world actually consider that it's within the town centre. It might be within Buckingham, but it's outside the town centre. And in order to sell beef burgers and coffee, they have to have a licence. It has to be a licensed premises, not to sell alcohol, but to sell food and refreshments after 11 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the morning. Now, I personally don't want to buy beef burgers at McDonald's at 3 in the morning. But there are some people who might. They might be on shift work. And they might be coming off shift at 5 in the morning. And it's a lot easier to go and get a McDonald's and needs to go home and cook yourself a meal. So as far as McDonald's is concerned, I wouldn't say I'm not concerned, but I don't think there is really a case that we could refuse it, because there's no McDonald's outside of town centres that doesn't have a 24-hour licence. They all operate on 24-hour licences, except in the town centres where they don't have them. Franchisees may not choose to open because it's uneconomic, which is what happened to Tesco's. They decided it would open 24 hours and found they were losing money, so they stopped doing it. So I don't have a real problem with McDonald's, because our lifestyle has changed. When this council was first set up, people didn't work the length of hours they did. We didn't have a university, and the university has grown, and some of the students may want to have a McDonald's, but probably most of them wouldn't drive up there anyway. They kind of walk into the town centre. I don't even really quote me on that. It's on public record now. I think that McDonald's should have a 24-hour licence. I think it would be uneconomic for them to operate and sell food and refreshments 2 or 3 in the morning, but that is an economic decision for them. It's not for us. Our remit is to say whether they can have a premises licence in order to sell food after 11 o'clock at night.
Thank you. Councillor Cole.
Yes, thank you, Matt. Yes, my motion is not about particularly aimed at McDonald's, it's about the abolition of our policy in Buckingham terminal hours. And if I could just answer Councillor Osborne, a couple of points you raised. You said, what evidence do we have? The evidence we have is since 2013, we have not had problems in the town. That speaks for itself. The other question about the licensing authority, as the clerk said, there is a sub-licensing committee. It's comprised of only 3 people. 2 of them come from the south of the county. And the third one, although he's from the north, has absolutely no connection at all with Buckingham. So none of these people appear to have any knowledge of what happens in Buckingham. That's where we are. And so I just wanted to make that point there.
Thank you. Councillor David.
Okay, one of the purposes of the Licensing Act, when it was brought in 2003, was to reduce antisocial behaviour. I don't think that any of us have got a problem with a business setting up and selling its wares at whatever time of the day. The issue, I believe, is coming across from the public, and that I believe is what the problem is likely to be, is the antisocial behaviour that goes alongside having somewhere such as a Mcdonald's drive-in, especially in the car parks such as Tesco's, and that sort of area. They become meeting places for large groups of youths. And like the car park here, AVDC changed the layout of the car park in order to stop young people meeting up in their cars and driving around and using it as a racetrack. McDonald's et al., when they have 24-hour outlets such as that, become a magnet for that sort of late night, early morning, meeting up, driving around, burning up, etc. And I believe that is where our members of the public are coming from with their objections to the 24-hour licence.
Thank you. Are we ready to move to a vote on the proposal? Councillor Secretary.
Through Town Clerk. Now, when we vote on this tonight, what is the legal mechanism and issue that we're voting on? Are we voting to say we're just objecting to it? Are we voting to say that we're going to appeal the decision? We have to be clear what legal grounds we're voting on. I think it's a good thing to vote on it. I don't think the issue is McDonald's. I think the issue is the licensing change. I think we agree on that. So can I have some, just so that we know when we're voting what we're actually going to be voting on, rather than just raise our hands and then say, well, I didn't know we voted on that. I think it's clear that we need to have that.
So I believe Councillor Cole's motion was to appeal the McDonald's decision. So that's actually what we're about to vote on. So whilst there are the two issues which obviously run close together and affect one another, but so that would be for us to appeal to the magistrates' court, but then to turn down or reconsider that decision for the reasons that have been discussed around the table. There's a separate issue about what we may or may not do with Buckinghamshire Council. What we can do is express our concern in the way that members have done around the table.
Second question then, that would have to be around the licensing policy, in the sense that the licensing policy being amended on track between court cases and one thing and another, and the fact that they're going to make policy on the 24th, which isn't the policy when the decision was taken. I believe that's correct.
Yeah, so at any point, whenever they made the decision, they had to operate under the policy that existed at the time. That's the basic principle.
And then the veracity of the information that Councillor White gave about the historics, that would be the background.
Yeah. I think obviously that's a really difficult question for a magistrate to hear, because you're asking them to consider something that's affected by something else. That's so, but obviously we have information we could provide in that concept in the appeal, so there's a rationale for doing that.
This is a larger picture than one thing.
Councillor Ashburton.
Yes, thank you. I mean, now it's nice to suggest before we move out, it might be important that we get an opinion, a legal opinion on this, because I can only imagine the legal costs that might be associated with our decision here. If we're not better informed as to the issues that may arise from it, we might incur costs, which I think we're worried about. Now, I think a legal opinion might be ideal to understand better our position, status of our policies, and if we do, or if we will, can succeed based on the route we're about to take. I think that might be quite important to consider.
Town Clerk.
So just a couple of comments. That one is that, as the report says, the deadline for responses is the 25th of November. So we may not have time to get the legal opinion we would need. Would depend, no guarantee on that. Certainly with the appeal on BP, Councillor Cole is representing the council with my support. So we're not spending any money on council legal support for doing that. We're just saying that this is the town council's decision. This is the town council's view, and presenting that as it is, rather than taking further legal advice. And my assumption in this conversation, which is always a very dangerous thing, that we'd take a similar approach, either with Councillor Cole or another of you to represent the council with my support for this appeal, because we've discussed the matters of fact around the table, so it is presenting them.
Could I just reassure members the cost of the appeal is £23.50?
Thank you. So on that basis, can we, Councillor Margie?
Sorry, I'm a realist, and however much we want to object to this, and I can see the ground where we should object to the 24 hours. I can see what's happening in Wolverton and Lister, and the money that Mcdonald has to fight this, and even appeal, they win it. We've seen this time and again that large companies, housing developers, will outbid us when it comes to legal thing. I'm a realist, and I think this will go, whether we object to it now or not, this will go through. If not now, it will go through in consequence. Thank you.
Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Mayor. I think we owe it to our the people that we represent to make sure that we do everything we can in order to appeal this.
Thank you. I think we don't just roll over. So can we move to a vote then? Those in favour of that proposal from Councillor Cole, seconded by Councillor Davies.
Do we have a recorded vote?
Show.
Yes, please.
Recorded vote.
Councillors Gately. So in favour of Councillor Cole. Gately, Stutchbury, Mahi, Try, Harvey, Ralph, Hetherington, Davis.
Willett.
Well, thank you. I do apologise. Oh, White and O'Donoghue.
And those against? Any abstentions?
Councillor Modgy and Councillor Saboti.
Thank you. So that motion is carried. And thank you to our two members of the public for their contributions to this. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, can we have a note to information after you've been declared it's going and what it's doing the timeline, so we are all informed with questions?
Thank you. So we move back to item 3 on the agenda, which is minutes. And the first set of minutes is from full council on the 4th of October. Everyone in favour of receiving those minutes, please show. Yep. And the interim minutes from the 1st of November. Everyone happy with it? Thank you. Planning committee on Monday, the 11th of October. And the 1st of November.
Madam Mayor.
Yeah,
Thank you. Yes, so I present minutes of the planning committee, Monday the 11th of October, Monday the 1st of November. There are no recommendations.
Thank you. And Councillor Stutchbury, the Town Centre and Events Committee, 25th October.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I present the minutes to be noted. What I would ask is that we agree the recommendation in, which is to recommend for council that the community annual community count includes the climate emergency issues within it. And I think I'll Madam Mayor's meeting, I think I'll pass over to Madam Mayor to talk about that, if that's okay with the committee. Is any appropriate, because it won't be events meeting, it will be a full council meeting, so any appropriate Mayor's meeting.
Thank you. Before I do that, Councillor Rowe.
Thank you. May I ask through the chair, the chair of TCNE, specifically about the screen that we had for the Remembrance Service and the financing of it, and could we actually confirm who paid for what? Because during the Remembrance Service, we were heckled as town council about being profligate with money, and I took some offence at that, and I didn't obviously at the time do anything because it was an appropriate moment.
Can I just clarify that, oh, sorry, did you?
It's the answer
Sorry.
question. I can answer that quite simply. The events committee met and we discussed the report which was presented to us in conjunction with the British Legion. The British Legion were very keen in there to make that event more inclusive and the issues to do with the station out crowd and everything like that. And they were very keen to do that. The screen was actually originally was funded by the British Legion and Peggy Dow's kind money that Peggy Dow donated to the British Legion in a charity funded, I think, £1,000 of that. The town council, town centre events, eventually, I think we made it £250, which was £600, of which was the understanding. We were willing to spend it all and pay for it all, but the British Legion were insistent that Peggy Dow would have wanted her contribution, her money from her thing. So when the comment, and I heard the comments were made that the town council was wasting public money on it, I think it was a bit of a special occasion. First time the community had been able to meet post-COVID and we would spend appropriate amounts of money to support our mayor and the civic function and the British Legion, because that seems the appropriate thing to do. That was the feeling of the council when they voted on it. I hope that answers the question. I think it's unfortunate. It was a public occasion and those remarks could have been done by correspondence to the town clerk, who would have answered them with great gusto. I hope that answers.
Thank you. It wasn't who paid for what, it was the whole idea that it was an appropriate time to be heckled, and I thought it was, well, I'll be clear, it was insulting to the town council, and I wanted to, as we're in a public situation, just bring it to the table.
Thank you.
And to have it properly minuted.
Thank you, because I wasn't aware of that.
No, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
In
Councillor.
which case, should we not put news items somewhere to clarify the situation?
Councillor.
I think it's a really matter for the events committee because they put the motion forward. They should consider the amount of money that's spent and compare it to the number of people who actually did watch it to produce an accurate report for town council.
I'm totally agree with part of that to recommending the council to actually use council money to spend it. It was this events committee hadn't got a budget to actually fund this. So that's why it's a recommendation to the council. You're totally right that we will talk about this in events. I don't think making a press release about this would be the most poignant thing to do. In fact, I think it would discourage from the actual work that was done by the British Legion in conjunction with our officers to make that event happen. And I think that would give more attention to the one person's comments over the great efforts of everybody else. I think people would understand my reason for saying that. Although I think we have a note in the minute to correct what was said, and I think that can be good enough. I don't think we should give too much credence to that sort of remark about the occasion.
Thank you.
Just to note that we did issue a press release before Remembrance Sunday, which did detail the amount and who was paying for which contribution. And that press release is still on our website if people need to look for and find information. So if they search for Remembrance, they will find it.
So obviously the gentleman didn't read press releases. Okay.
Thank you. I did speak to one or two people who have looked at, used the screen, and they were quite positive about it.
Just before I close off events, I would like to say that they are running up to Christmas, and we'll be lighting our Christmas lights at the weekend. And just so it's a public record, we'd like the comments about spending money, public money, and we will be spending about £11,000 or £450 on the lights, which are paid for by Buckingham, not Buckmanship Council. We'll be spending roughly, in conclusion with the total spent about £1,500, and we will be spending, including the money we spent on financing the Christmas parade for Christmas, we'll be spending probably around about £19,000 on producing and supporting Buckingham's economy during the Christmas period to make sure our traders can trade in our Christmas is good. And that is on the backdrop and the dropout of COVID. And I think from the town council, that's a big commitment from all of us to our lifetime economy and supporting people. Because when people find out stuff about spending money, it's very better to be open about these things.
Thank you. So if I return to the issue about the annual town meeting, that's right.
So I wasn't aware that they were going to have new items on the under this item, but I think I do need to respond to the points that Councillor Statutory has made. Is that, as far as I'm aware, that there has been no submission to the Buckingham Villages Community Board to help support the Christmas economy, which we did last year very willingly, which I think actually is a better place where some of these activities are funded, because we support not just Buckingham Town, but our hinterland as well. So I think we need to be careful that we're spending Buckingham Town council taxpayers' money on a much bigger thing, and we haven't gone to another body to help support that.
So maybe that's a lesson for the future.
Well, can I come back on that? That it's not a lesson for the future. It's a historical public record that we've been spending this money for the best part of 20 years that I know of. I don't know if I can come back, but I think you're right that we should approach the community board for additional
Councillor
funding.
Such, because I think we have diverted from our agenda item. So if I can revert back to the annual town meeting, and the notion was that the town council has given the climate emergency action plan a very high priority, and the feeling was that we should take that a stage further and use that as the theme for the annual town meeting in 2022. Because part of the climate emergency action plan was community engagement, and that would be one way of using that evening very constructively with a focus on the climate emergency plan. So that is the suggestion that we'll use that annual meeting in that way.
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, so we do need to, can we vote? Those in favour?
Just like Greens.
That's unanimous.
Thank you. Moving on to item 7, Environment Committee, Councillor White.
I move the minutes of the 18th of October, as previously circulated. There are no recommendations.
Thank you.
But I suppose I just would mention that we do need to clarify a little bit that, given what you just mentioned about the annual town meeting covering the climate emergency, how the Environment Committee has a positive role in that, and we can actually be a bit more coordinated. At the moment, it does seem very split up at the moment, which isn't very helpful.
Okay, thank you. I'll take that on board. And item 8, Resources Committee, Councillor O'Donoghue.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members happy to receive the minutes from the 8th of November. There is a recommendation here proposed by Councillor Harvey, seconded by Councillor Stutbury, to recommend to full council that we recognise that as elected members of Buckingham Town Council, we are custodians of the Climate Emergency Action Plan and commit to encourage Buckingham to become carbon neutral.
Thank you. So can we vote on that? Those in favour, please. Oh, did you want Councillor Osborne?
Yes, I'm just going to propose an amendment to that, if I may. Yes, I was going to propose the amendment to, we as elected members recognise that Buckingham Town Council is the custodian of the Climate Emergency Action Plan and commit to encourage Buckingham to become carbon neutral. Say that again. We as elected members recognise that Buckingham Town Council is the custodian of the Climate Emergency Action Plan and commit to encourage Buckingham to become carbon neutral.
Okay, so
Checking out a few words.
Councillor O'Donoghue, were you happy for that to be amended in that way?
I would refer to Councillor Harvey and Councillor Stutbury as the seconder of that motion.
I think that's how it's meant to be done.
So just as a point of order, I'd like to second the amendment, which I think we have to discuss first.
Okay, thank you.
Quite right. Quite right.
So Councillor Harvey.
Okay, I disagree with the amendment because the whole point of this, I mean, we're already custodians of the policy. We signed it off here as a full council. In any case, this is about each of us taking personal responsibility
So we should each of us do what we can as custodians of the policy to move Buckingham towards becoming carbon neutral. It's deliberately about us as members, not us as a collective town council. So the actual amendment that's been proposed is actually doing away with that altogether. So I do not see the point of that, because that's destroying the whole point of this motion, that we are individually as members, like we are with the code of conduct, like we are with many other aspects of how the town council operates. We personally say, this is really important, this is an emergency, and we've got to do what we can to take things forward.
That was the discussion that we had.
Exactly.
Resources.
Exactly.
Thank you. So Councillor Bogan and Councillor White, I think.
Yes, the reason behind the proposed amendment is to ensure that as councillors, discussion is not fettered and objectivity is maintained. I think as it's currently drafted, it will fetter councillors' discussion. And I think as a council, if we all agree, decisions made pursuant to the climate emergency action plan is abided by, then so be it. But if we then have to individually at our discretion as to decisions we will make going forward, I think that itself might have legal implications as well. That's the reason why.
Thank you. Councillor White, then Councillor Stutchbury.
Thank you. I mean, for the points that have just been made by my colleague, I don't believe that the town council can instruct individual councillors on their personal behaviour, apart from the code of conduct, which is set out by law. And you know, we are a corporate body. We work as a corporate body. None of us can represent the town council, apart from through you or if you're deputised. You know, maybe the town clerk can clarify the legal position of this motion. And it's well intended, and I don't have a major issue with that, because anyone knows me well, and probably more environmentally conscious than pretty much everyone around this table. But will each and every one of you give up your diesel or petrol car tomorrow? Will you be stopping smoking tomorrow? Will you be? There's lots of good questions that this motion actually will force from each and every one of you. And I don't believe you actually want to do that. You want to change your behaviours in a pragmatic, timely manner that suits your financial situation, your personal situation, and actually your personal beliefs and how you want to address the climate emergency. So I'm very happy to support the amendment, which I think makes it very clear on the role of the town council. But I would like the town clerk to maybe clarify the legality of enforcing councillors to do something that is above and beyond the law.
Thank you, town clerk.
So the point is well made. So the full council voted for a motion which said that which stipulated what individual councillors would do, and particularly if that was not carried unanimously, then the implication would be that the full council could vote to instruct a particular council what they could do, and actually that is not legally possible. So actually and we are an independent council with an independent structure. So from that point of view, so I suppose technically, if there was a vote and it was unanimous, but that could be seen as an unfair pressure to put members under in this situation. So the amendment proposed by Councillor Bogan is definitely legally viable and wouldn't cause any issues or difficulties. But there may be somebody sat around the table who is uncomfortable with that, but wouldn't feel able to say that in this context. So you could be putting something, you could be putting the council in a position of voting on a motion which actually wouldn't be legally viable anyway.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Stutchbury
I
next.
just wondered when I look at the speaker, clearly you vote the amendment twice, but then round, but that's fine. I understand the logic of what the arguments both ways, and you can take it. I thought that the intention, and I think the proposal of the original motion to amend it could say that it was to encourage people to, councillors to encourage Buckingham to become more carbon neutral. I don't think what the intention was to go around virtual signalling and signalling out councillors for any prurient or on the top Cromwell type action. I think it was just the discussion came out of the basis that there was a discussion about Buckinghamshire council makes all its councillors are corporate parents. and Buckinghamshire Council, all Buckinghamshire councils are corporate parents. That means that they all have an oversight. And I think that's the discussion we were talking around. I think it wasn't meant to be overcomplicated, it wasn't meant to be divisive, it was meant to be simple. So I need to ascertain, we're having lots of questions of law around tonight, which are very entertaining, and give much courage to the minutes. But I think that we need to ascertain, was there anything illegal in the motion put here? Otherwise, the town clerk shouldn't have put it on the agenda. And you should have amended it before it went on the agenda. Amending stuff in meetings before it comes to council, then suggesting there could have been, isn't the way council should run. And if it should have done, it should have been corrected at the drafting before it appeared on this council agenda. So that's the point to actually correct it, not during the meeting. So you suggested there may have been, in which case it shouldn't have been on the agenda, it should have been meant to forget it. And then we wouldn't have been having such a long discussion about the technicalities of the law. That's my comment on this. And it's a shame that something that was meant to be, by Councillor Harvey, to be a forward-looking, progressive statement, was turning into a regressive matter of law. And I don't think, and I know Council Watts committed to environment, I'm not going to question that at that point, and I don't think anyone around here is less committed than anybody else. But it's just that point that I find strange that we're now having this, because if we're going to have this legal process in everything we bring to council, we better bring a lawyer to every meeting.
Well, thank you. Town Clerk, can you comment? I've got Councillor Davies and Councillor Harvey and Councillor Mordew. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, so I've already said that councillors have both made a good point. If council voting on this, it could put us in a difficult legal position. Councillor Stetson makes a good point. I should have picked that up before the meeting. I didn't, so I apologise for that. But that's the situation we're in.
Thank you. Councillor Davies.
Thank you, Mayor. I read this, the emphasis being on that last phrase, which is and commit to encourage Buckingham to become carbon neutral. It does not. There's nothing in there that says that we've got to give up driving our petrol cars or install air source heat pumps in our homes or anything else. It's to commit to courage, and that's within our own abilities to do. There's nothing that I can see that is wrongly putting onus on people in that respect. So I agree with the motion as it sits.
Thank you. Can I just say that Councillor Ahmed's joined us on Zoom at this point. Good to see you, Councillor Ahmed. If you want to speak, then we need to suspend standing orders, but we've got a little queue already. Okay. I'll come to, did you want to speak a bit later on this matter?
I will probably want to say something, yes.
Okay. Councillor Harvey next.
I honestly don't know what the controversy is all about here. The first part of this motion states what is actually simply the case, that we are all custodians of our club and emergency plan. By sitting on a council which is agreed by policy that we have a club and emergency action plan, we are all custodians of it. It's so that is what we're doing, sitting here with that. So I cannot see what on earth is controversial about that. And there is nothing in this motion about instructing people to give up diesel or give up petrol or whatever. That is pure straw man argument, completely. Do not be misled by that. Just to look at the words. We're asking people simply to commit to encouraging the town to become neutral. What on earth is controversial about that? Nothing at all. Can we leave beside all this legal sophistry and straw man arguments altogether and get on with this agreeing something that is basically fairly neutral? It's ridiculous.
Thank you. I've still got a number of people wanting to speak, so Councillor Mordew.
What you can or cannot do is prescribed under Local Government Act of 1973, and if you go outside it, you are breaking the law.
I think we do. Councillor Willett.
I read the motion very similarly to Councillor Davis and Councillor Harvey, in the sense of you know, it was a commitment to encouraging this. Each member of, you know, of the council here are in some ways connected to committing to reducing the environmental impact on Buckingham. I know a couple of us sort of sit on the committees there. I know I was community engagement for a project that was centered around the environment. There was absolutely nothing that I took about giving up a car with, you know, petrol or diesel. I think this has been totally conflated.
Thank you. Councillor Ahmed, I don't know whether you're still listening or we've lost you, I think.
So, Councillor,
Oh, I can still hear you, sorry.
All right, would you like to speak on this?
I've just joined, so I'm still trying to catch up with what everyone is saying.
Okay, thank you. I think maybe we need to just go back to the town clerk for clarification about whether we need to change the wording or whether it can stand as it was.
So the point that Councillor Spoken made was that the motion as it stands effectively says that each member is committing to do something. So that's been recognised as individual members. And at the point it's correctly been said, the council cannot vote on something that commands or expects individual councillors to do anything. So you could vote on this council would encourage, I guess, but that seems to be a bit more pointless. So you cannot vote on something which specifically requires or instructs members to do something. So saying we recognise that as elected members of Buckingham, that is putting words in the mouth of each individual councillor. So that isn't possible. You put yourself at risk having something which immediately a council can start and say, well, I don't accept that, and the council just voted illegally for me to do something that I can't do. Whereas if we meant it to say we recognise that the town council, of which are all corporate members, and you form the council, then that would work very well within the way the town council structure works. So I'm trying to give you really strong advice. If you vote on it as it is, you're putting yourself at risk of voting on something that's not legal.
Thank you. I think from my point of view, I think everybody here is in agreement that we should be doing what we can to support the climate emergency action plan. I don't think there's any disagreement about that. The issue is how this motion is worded to encourage that outcome. And I think we've got to take the town clerk's advice on the legality. And can we just have that read out then?
I'd like to make a proposal.
Can we just finish with what I'm suggesting first? Nina, have you got that word in then?
Yeah. Proposed by Councillor Oxford and second Councillor White. So we, as elected members, recognise Buckingham Town Council as the custodian of the Carbon Emergency Action Plan and commit to encourage Buckingham to become carbon neutral.
Thank you. Are people happy to vote on that and then that motion as has been amended, proposed and seconded?
No, we have to vote to agree the amendment.
Vote to agree the amendment, I'm sorry. So those in favour of the amendment, please show.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Those against? Abstentions?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Councillor Ahmed, I should just point out that although you can speak, you can't vote because you're not present in the room.
Okay, yeah.
So we can now vote on the proposal as amended. Those in favour, please show.
1, 2. Sorry, I'm your correction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Those against?
1.
Any abstentions?
1, 2, 3.
Thank you. Okay. So we've already dealt with item 9. Item 10, to receive and question reports from Buckmanship Council councillors. We've got 4 councillors present.
I'm still here.
Charging up. I'd like to deal with it alphabetic. I don't know who'd like to speak on the first or. I'm trying
Would
to.
you? Begin surname or first name?
That's what I want. I've written down first names and then I think it should be. Councillor Mordew, I think that's the best.
I don't intend to say anything with another 3 councillors who can say it just as well as myself.
Thank you.
Listening to your voice, Howard.
Well, I will say, if anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to take them now or email me afterwards. I don't see the point in prolonging it by 4 reports on the same subject.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, I've got a question for Councillor Mordew. Can you explain why the town mayor wasn't invited to the raising of the flag on the Heartlands the other day?
No, I can't answer it. That's a question for the Buckinghamshire Council, Green Spaces. I'm welcome. I'm happy to take the question up.
Okay, will you? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Osborne, you're next, I think.
Right, I'm sure councillors White and will see more. I will also highlight the things that we canopy, which I think a lot of parishes and town councils encouraged to support.
Sorry, Councillor.
That's the Queen Green's canopy. The Queen will be celebrating our Jubilee on the 2nd of June 2022. This occasion marks the 70th year on the throne, and we want to encourage to plant a tree to mark our Jubilee. I'm also touching the adult social care, which is currently being promoted. Some of the scheme of see something, say something, do something. It's a medium to protect or to prevent abuse of adults who are oftentimes overlooked. Also know there's certain schemes that have long expired. We had the design code for Buckinghamshire that was going on as well. We also have the community board, which have regular meetings. The dates of the meetings are duly communicated to the town clerk. And I'll just leave the rest for fellow councillors to touch on.
Thank you.
So we'll have to take questions.
Any questions for Councillor Osborne? Councillor Stutchbury.
Yeah, let's start somewhere. Buckinghamshire Council on the 24th, you'll note, following on from the Buckingham Town Council's motion regarding discharge sewage of the motion council. You'll also note that on the agenda, which fits in very much with topics discussed around this table on numerous occasions, there's a proposal motion to change the way that the council will operate within 20 mile an hour limits and the way it deals with it. The motion itself contradicts some actions of the town council which have made an application to, it could contradict and still to be clear whether it does. You will recall the Buckingham Town Council made an application to the community board some probably 18 months ago for funding towards a study to look into the 20 mile an hour limit. I'm not sure if that motion is passed where that leaves that study, whether that decision, whatever. What I am concerned about is many of the community board funding schemes seem to be delayed, and we're not actually putting them through as quickly as one would want to. The answers I've got aren't what I would have liked. They seem to be delayed, and other people are making decisions on why they're being delayed. Now, I think that the community boards will only succeed if they're seen to be able to deliver what the parishes want in a context of the financial context there is. Also, you'll see that we've discussed earlier today, the licensing matter will be coming forward, policy coming forward early in the agenda on the 24th. That's clearly listening to the debate around it tonight, I can imagine some of you members, Buckinghamshire Council have one view on it, others have different. So we'll see how that debate goes, but it will be penultimate to where we are. I'm also been to numerous community board meetings with different members of the Buckmanship Council, highways to environment to youth, and which I see different members of Buckinghamshire Council appear, and I see different members of the community engaging in the community board in a positive way, which is a good thing. I also sit on health and scrutiny, which will be on the 25th, and on the agenda is an item from an update from the chairman on the swan practice, which might be of interest to us, being it's a Buckinghamshire issue. Chairman's going to give an update on where we go forward as a ask on that. Well, I won't preload our update, but it might be worth following that afterwards and give her the right to say what she's going to say. The Buckinghamshire Council itself will be going into budget setting. All political groups will be having their meetings to discuss the budget next year. I am remaining concerned that with adult social care and the things that we agree, whether that's going to be able to be properly resolved. That's not a criticism of the council, it's just a matter of fact that the finances aren't yet there. The decisions of the government, we won't discuss that, but the council has to deal with those issues in the interim until money comes forward. But also, as you will have read in the paper, let's not discuss the issue of it, but there's a danger of staff hemorrhaging from both the health service and care homes through the vaccination question, which will be quite a difficult thing to deal with. That saying, Buckinghamshire Council continues its meeting to discuss many large aspects of what affects our community. I had a meeting today with the cabinet member and officers to discuss education matters. Must confess it was a reasonably prosperous meeting, and it was about the way reports are drafted and the way they would go to committee. And there's many things that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, from housing to social care, and there just seems to be quite a proliferation of both of those things at the moment, and I think it's something in the wind. I only hope that they settle, but as a Buckinghamshire Council, it's very rewarding when you solve problems for people. And as for planning, we don't seem to meet very often in the North Bucks Planning Committee. We met once and decided an application at Stowe, and I would imagine at some point there'll be lots of applications to come to the committee to be decided, because we know from our work or the work with the council how many applications are outstanding which need to be delivered, from large applications on the Corporate Road to a large application on the Mays Morton Road. So I think in the future we'll be busy. But saying that, the road plan's now been drafted, and the key thing I believe now is for the Buckinghamshire Council to look back at the historic document of the transport plan, because the transport plan isn't there, and I hope that the Buckinghamshire plan will look at that again and try to bring forward something to mitigate that, and we'll all be involved in that. But yes, it's quite busy, and I attend the fire authority. The fire authority is like any authority looking at its own house at the moment. The fire authority has a large financial gap, which it's got to try and plug between now and its own preset. It also took a decision, which is very much off topic tonight, to try and become more carbon neutral as a fire authority and look at ways of purchasing forward and planning its way out of trying to have its own carbon footprint, which I think was a good move, and took a long time getting there. So all in all, it's been quite busy, and I hope that that gives you a reasonable assumption of things that one does.
Thank you, Councillor Stutchbury. Councillor Wright.
If I may ask a question through the chair to Councillor Stutchbury. As you know, I'm quite keen on the 20 mile an hour issue, and put motions to this council before about it. Could I press Councillor Stutchby to make sure that we do get some sort of study of our own, rather than relying, as it appears to be, on some figures given by Oxfordshire Council, when it may very well be the basis for coming to conclusions, and nowhere near like for like, and banging around figures like £8 million, I don't think help.
Thank you. I don't know how we take that.
Well, there's a question to you. I will promise to act in accordance with what I believe is right with these things going on. What I am concerned about is that the community board bid hasn't actually been agreed, and there's also the Buckingham Secondary School bid which hasn't actually been agreed, and there's also one in another parish. They're sitting out there, haven't actually been agreed. The 20 mile an hour thing is wrapped up within the community board bid, and I think that is something that needs answering. I think that's been delayed, and it's unfortunate because it's probably got some age to it. What I can say is that I will act accordingly in the meeting in regards to what we say on the 20 mile an hour elements within the thing. I have had discussions all weekend about those things with various people across Buckinghamshire about the effects of that policy on large sections of Buckingham. That's across a broad spectrum of people. I am taking it very seriously. All I can do is use my one vote within the chamber to try to do what is right. But I can't predict what they'll do with the 20 mile an hour, because if that policy goes through, if it's agreed in my reading of it, it would mean that the burden to fund these things would come back to the individual RC, which basically kills off any possibility of a small parish doing anything without the support of the community board. I'm unclear whether that's what the intention of the motion is, but I think the people will probably make that more clear on 24.
Thank you. Councillor White.
Thank you. So a lot's been going on since I last had a chance to update you, but I won't take too long because it gives a chance for a couple of questions if needed. First off, some of you will be aware that I've launched a challenge to the town centre to see if we can tidy up our pavements and streets with the bin blight. So it's raised some interesting conversations, I think. But what's clear in my mind is that there is no need for anyone to be keeping a bin on the public highway, blocking it for pedestrians and strollers and pushchairs and mobility scooters and the like. And hopefully in the next couple of weeks, after the conversations have run their course, we can get the Buckinghamshire Council to help remind residents of their duty and options should they not have anywhere to store rubbish inside their demise. I think that's really important given some of the issues we've had over the last year. Secondly, the floodmobile, which I talked about a while back, I'm really keen that we still get that here in Buckingham or North Bucks, and working quite hard with the flood team to make sure we can get a date in the diary. That's proven to be much harder to get a date in the diary than expected, but it is still ongoing. We had a really useful visit, both with Howard and Eddie and myself, with the Transport Cabinet member a couple of weeks ago. We had a really good discussion on some of the topics that we've all discussed around this table many times. In particular, the Old Town Hall area. We had a good discussion on what he can do to help unlock some of the blockages we have from officers. So that's ongoing. I'm pleased to say that as part of our Welcome Back and Shop Local programme, we will have someone filming in Buckingham later this week, and they're talking to local traders to help do some corporate videos to help Buckinghamshire and Buckingham out there on social media and various other communication avenues to remind residents they don't need to go trips all the way to Milton Keynes or Oxford or wherever to do the shopping. They can stay local. The Buckingham Design Guide is already touched on, but one interesting fact is apparently Buckingham was in the top 3 for responses, which I think is a great testament to probably a few town councillors and having an active civic society. I imagine they submitted a few. The Green Flag Award for Forton Park, which was mentioned, happened on Friday afternoon, which went really well, and a good chance for the Buckinghamshire councillors to thank the grounds team and to have some positive discussions about making sure Buckingham remains on the agenda for not just the parks, but the town centre amenity spaces as well. So that's very positive. And on that basis, we also had a commitment to look at backfilling some of the old tree pits in the car park, which have been missing trees for quite some time. So the tree officer is very keen to sort that out. If we can do that in time with current planting season, we don't know, because cherry trees instead, they can be snapped up quite quickly in the planting season, but it's definitely on the cards. We had Glynswood, not sure it's not here anymore, Glynswood Road has been resurfaced, which was long overdue, but has finally been done. You've already talked about 20 zones. There is I think it's fair to say from a community board perspective, there's a significant difference of opinion between the community board and Buckinghamshire Council, and that debate is ongoing. But it probably would have been helpful if there's more communication between the town council and the community board on the way that was structured and why it's probably stickier at the moment than I would have preferred. But unfortunately, that's out of my hands. But we keep pushing. Going back in the history, we had the 2018 pollution event from Brackley. I was quite irritated. The Environment Agency, they promised me all over the summer for an update. October happened, no update. So I reminded the area manager that it'd be quite nice if we knew what had happened with the 2018 pollution event. So I am waiting still. And finally, a bit of just quite related to our environmental discussions, Buckinghamshire hosted the Green Wheels event, which was part of COP26. And it was just outside our borders up at Silverstone, so a really important regional event, part of COP26. And as part of that, there was an announcement that Buckinghamshire Council will start retrofitting its heavy vehicles, particularly refuse vehicles, to be electrified. And Lunas, who are one of the new businesses that have moved into Silverstone Enterprise Zone, have a way of doing, making use of what you've already got, but obviously turn it to a zero carbon emitter on the street. So that sounds really positive. And also, of course, it's great that it supports a local business that some of our residents working. I could go on, but I think that's okay.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Cole.
Through you, Councillor White, I've been buttonholed by a number of my ward residents saying the brown bin collection is suspended until next year, but they're aware from social media that it continues in the rest of the county. They feel it's particularly perverse at the moment because leaf has only just started falling in the last week or so, and it will be continuing to do so for a week. So they're saying, where are the brown bins when we really need them?
I don't use it in the brown bin service myself, but I have heard one or two things on social media. But I have to say, only one person actually has written to me about it. So one person out of 10,000 odd. I do wonder how big an issue it is for most residents. However, if the town council or residents want to contact the Buckinghamshire council with specific issues, then we'll be very happy to look into that. What I am very confident in is that whatever happens next year and the year after, there will be further consolidation between all parts of the legacy councils. But it isn't easy to switch on and off a brand new service, given you have a finite number of vehicles, you have a finite number of staff. HGV drivers are challenging at the best of times. The south of the county has not had a particularly good transition. They still don't have separate food collections because of HGV driver issues and vehicle issues. So, yeah, I think rest assured I'm definitely fighting for fairness and consolidation, but we have to be careful that some of the things we have in North Bucks, South Bucks don't have, and we have to be very careful that we don't, I don't want to pay South Bucks parking charges, for example. So we have to be really careful that what we actually talk about, consolidation and consistency, is right for Buckingham. But yeah, if residents or councillors want to share actual specific cases with us, then we'll be happy to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hall.
One matter that I've yet to get any firm
answer on is about the code of conduct. The LGA and now work together over some period to produce a standard format code of conduct. It is my understanding, perhaps you can clarify that Buckinghamshire Council have adopted a new code of conduct, but it is based upon, but not identical to, the now/LGA one. And what I've been trying to find out is how is it different and why is it different to the one that was produced by now the LGA. If you could bottom that out, because obviously it's very important that when we come to the our code of conduct, that you probably adopt the same one as the Shire Council for obvious reasons. Then I think we need to know how it's been altered, if it's been altered, from the model produced by the LGA and now.
You probably asked the wrong council because I'm not on that board or that committee, so I wouldn't know the ins and outs of the exact details that you're asking.
Well, I'm not asking you to answer it now, Warren. Could you find out?
I'm not on that committee, so
I think
you could better direct that question to someone else if you wanted a.
Can I make a suggestion as to how it fits on the standard board?
Okay, question for Howard. I've had my chance to speak.
Please.
can we have some order here, please? Would you like to respond briefly?
As been said, it's absolutely correct. I'm on the standards board and I will take the matter of the code of conduct up.
Thank you.
I'll just update Councillor Stutchbury on the Stowe situation that's been called in by the Minister.
Thank you. And Town Clerk, did you want to say something about the code of conduct?
All I was going to say was I have been seeking from officers an explanation of that for some time. So it was kind of one step away from me taking it to members. And just to remind members that if you haven't yet, you will shortly receive an email inviting you to a workshop to discuss the code of conduct, by which time I'm sure we'll have an answer to that question.
Just a question, Councillor White, I hope you can help. Reference problems in communications over the 29 hours between the town council and the fact that it's an issue, and I think they probably share the same thing that I want to express it. How do you feel that that's going to progress, and do you feel that it's not your decision if the decision goes through on Wednesday that it suffers our progressing a community board fee? I'm not sure, and whether you're sure, even it's probably an unfair question because it's not, you're not having a member for it, you're just community board member. Do you think that our community board bid, the town council's bid, been in long enough that it should have shouldn't be influenced by that decision because it's retrospective then? I'm not sure because how do you feel?
Well, I'm not crystal ball, but I mean, I did remind the town council that it was asking for something else outside current council policy, and the community boards are there to deliver Buckinghamshire council policies at a local level. So there was already an issue with the way that the town council constructed its bid to the community board, which has made my life extremely difficult because the community board last year under Charlie Clare had initiated a 20-zone scheme focused on school safety zones. So the two got conflated, which has completely scuppered me, which I'm not particularly happy about because we probably lost the opportunity to get something local in North Bucks. But certain people in the town council didn't like that going further, so we might have missed the vote. Who knows what happens on Wednesday?
Thank you for that clarification. Can we move on then to, and thank you, Buckinghamshire Council, councillors, for updating us. Calendars. We've been circulated calendars for 2022 and 2023. Town Clerk.
Just to provide an explanation for councillors, you may remember, well, many of you weren't here, but we originally agreed 2022 calendar about a year ago, which we thought for a year in advance. And it also circulated until we became council election. However, a number of the dates have changed in the 2022 calendar. And just to explain, the reason for that is that we now have clearer information from Buckinghamshire Council about the date on which we received the council tax base information in 2022. And so I've scheduled it so that once we've received the council tax base information in early December 2022, each committee will then have a chance to review a draft budget based on the actual council tax base in time to make the preset decision in early 2023. And actually there's a domino effect right the way back through the year when you put those committee dates in the right place, which is why we've had to change the whole year's calendar.
Thank you. Councillor Tribe, Councillor Stutchbury and Councillor Mordew.
Could you just check the 22nd of August, because I can't see a bank holiday on other websites for that date.
I think that's merged with the 29th, so that should just drop down to the 29th of August.
No. Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Stutchbury.
Read it, I'm very happy because the points that are made have been taken into consideration around the dates and times of meetings, in which case I'm happy both would agree. And let's all commit to be here in 2023 to actually discuss those agendas. And I hope you all are all here in 2023. It seems a long way ahead at the moment, but we must commit to that.
Thank you.
Just say that the date for Christmas parade in, I think it's December 23 is wrong. I'll send you the correct date.
Okay, thank you. So we need to receive and agree these updated calendar for 2022. Those in favour?
With the amendment.
With the amendments as necessary.
With the amendments.
That's no.
Not quite, no. Those against?
It is what it is.
Any abstentions?
So I'm waiting for my iPad to recharge to refresh my memory. So I can't go either way.
And to review and agree the calendar dates for 2023. Those in favour? Those against? Abstentions? I think those are
They're carried by strong majority.
And then we move on to item 12, which is the action list. Has anybody any questions on the action list? I should just point out the climate and emergency action plan is due for review in March 2022, and it shouldn't have been put as an agenda, the deadline agenda today. Councillor Stutchbury.
Just to say the child poverty we did meet, but it was, and that we will be meeting again, but it's clear that we need to have more people than we're able to make the meeting in a time when people are at work. I think that was agreed, and I think those notes of that meeting of those relevant committees that we did meet, and I think that will assist with further discussions on it. I hope, because various people for various reasons were unable to attend, and that's soon. Enough members discussed it to move it forward.
Thank you. Councillor Warren.
The welcome signs I wasn't aware of. I just think, given that there are highway signs, it might be worth considering getting the community board involved so we can have the right Buckingham support on it.
We're just getting the cost to make.
There would be sort of the community board was involved, so we were side blinded by something that was between the town, a committee and TFB, and really missing out the community board.
Thank you. Councillor Cole.
Yes, this one's for the clerk. At our meeting on the 13th September, the interim meeting, a motion was proposed by me and seconded by Councillor Stutchbury that we should ask the police to respond to the counter closures and why they've abandoned the 14.4 million software scheme. It hasn't yet appeared on the action list.
That's a very good question, Councillor Cole. I did send the original letter shortly after the meeting. I received an automatic acknowledgement of it, so it definitely got the right email address. I sent a follow-up email approximately 2 weeks ago, and I still haven't heard anything.
Thank you, Clerk.
So that maybe needs to go on the next action list, is it, or not?
It should be on the action
Yeah,
list.
thank you.
Can you send me that question in writing? I do believe the police and crime commissioner is making a trip to meetings this week. It might be something you might be able to answer in person. Last week you might not be having the answer. It precedes his actual taking over, so you might not know the answer either.
Thank you. Nothing else on the action list. Move on to item 13. I think the confirm that the town clerk has provided the mayor with a sealed envelope. It is in accordance with financial regulation 6.11.
Written in my appalling handwriting, which could not possibly be reproduced by anybody else. So just to explain to members that this is something which should always be done under financial regulations. What it means is the mayor now has a copy of passwords to my computer, so she can log off from anywhere to act in emergency situations. Myself and the deputy town clerk both in the lottery and disappear immediately. The town clerk, sorry, the mayor can then open the envelope and access. It is sealed and it is signed, and the mayor is only allowed to open it in the presence of 2 other councillors. And when the mayor eventually hands on to somebody else, it will be handed over to the next mayor. So
It should never be open.
the president has a box he walked around with nuclear codes, and the mayor has an envelope.
So I need to guard that with my president.
Only one question, if it's got the lucky numbers for the lottery, it shouldn't be shared.
Thank you. There shouldn't be any questions on that. There's a statement of licensing policy, item 14, to receive, discuss and decide whether to respond to the consultation from Buckinghamshire Council in relation to the Gambling Act. Does anybody want to speak on this? Councillor Harvey.
2 things. I thought that this would be first go to the planning committee. It was more like a planning matter than a full council matter. I can check.
So planning don't deal with licensing matters.
Okay.
No.
Okay. We have in the past discussed it. And secondly, really based upon what's happened with regards to McDonald's and having our comments completely ignored, is there any point?
Thank you. Councillor Stutchbury.
I think there is always a point. It's only to find out there was no point. Afterwards, at least then you proved the point that it was no point. So I would suggest that we do respond to it, because it is a very serious matter, and how we do that, I think we should be guided through the town clerk on how we do that. We had enough legal questions about just bringing something to the environment tonight, so I think we perhaps should ask the town clerk how we can legally respond to that, and what our way, what we do, and how.
Yeah, what options do we have?
So given the time scale, the council could choose to delegate a response to interested councillors to work on and liaison with them. I'm reluctant to write the council's response personally, assume it's correct, but I think it would be that the council could delegate to me to carry out in liaison with the mayor and interested members if 2 or 3 of you were prepared to read it through and work out the response.
Yeah, agreed.
What is the deadline?
10th of December.
10th of December.
It's
So
always a good deadline, that, anyway.
we haven't got a lot of time, have we? So is there anybody with a particular interest or experience on?
Never been in a book, so I know nothing about gambling.
Not that I'll admit to.
I bet you have.
Councillor Hall.
Well, as a sometime gambler,
Oh,
remember I won 140 quid gambling on the results of the 2017 election. So I'm happy to be part of that small group.
Thank you.
and work with the clerk.
Councillor Day.
I'm got interested in licensing matters,
So you'd like to be on that as well?
as long as we agree to meet
In the
while I
evening?
work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Point taken. So that's, if I'm involved in that as well, that's 3 councils. And if 3 Buckinghamshire councils can agree licensing for the whole of the county, then I think 3 Buckingham town councils can take that. Councillor Stutchbury.
but I thank you all for doing that and taking the gamble to fill it all in. And I wish you luck with it. I've never been in a bookies, so I don't know what it's like. So
Just to agree.
Yeah. Those in favour of those 3 people, please show.
That's
That's unanimous, I think. Thank you very much.
it won't be work out.
Reports from representatives on outside bodies. Councillor Harvey, did you want to speak about local?
Yeah, I've already sent his words through to Nina, but I'll read them out anyway. Members will recall that I took this on last May. It's taken a while, but I'm happy to report that a small meeting was held with some parties to reboot the Local Dementia Action Alliance. And we've got a second meeting coming up on the 2nd of December. We hope to have more people attending. Anybody from on the table is more than welcome to come. It was a useful meeting. We shared why we were there, and we all have a keen interest in helping to make Buckingham an even more dementia-friendly town. Early days, but I'm confident that we've got beginnings of a solid alliance.
Thank you, because I think the manager of the new care home on Latham Manor, is it called?
That's right.
He's
Yeah.
very interested.
Yeah,
in.
he is. He's very keen on it, and also somebody from the Morton house. I think Gracewell. Yeah, Gracewell. I was going to change hands soon. Actually, it's been taken by somebody else. But yes, that care home as well.
Okay.
Plus others too, and one person who has early onset dementia as well came along to the meeting, and that was very informative.
Perhaps if you can send down the details of that, so if any councillor is available and willing to attend, then.
Yeah, 2nd December, 7 p.m. Get in touch with me, and I'll tell you where we're going to meet.
Thank you. Councillor Stutchbury.
Firstly, thank Councillor Harvey for getting that up and running again. And I should extend that thanks to an obvious need for it in the community. And just for a point of information, it slipped my mind. Who is this in conjunction with Buckmanship Council, I presume, who are doing this? It's not us doing this, it's Buckmanship Council supporting it, is that right?
It's really Alzheimer's Society, frankly, that sponsor this.
Yeah.
I've yet to make contact with them. We're very, very early days, probably to take this forward. But any support from anyone is welcome. At the moment, there's no money in the kitty. There doesn't need to be any money in the kitty, but when there does, we'll come here. That's what we're going to bring to board as well, and hopefully get support. But I don't want to be chairing it. I don't just make that point again. I'm hoping to reboot it and then say, great, carry on, go forth and multiply. Because that was the plan.
Thank you,
That wasn't the plan that I was going to be chairing.
Thank you for that, and a reminder it's a very important group. Councillor White, did you want to speak about the rural town centre, high streets and villages?
Yeah, just briefly, and thank you for including the link in the agenda. Really well worth a little rummage around some of the presentations if you have time. So the Rural Services Network ran what they call the Rural Town Centres, High Streets and Village Hubs session last month. And it was a mix of general policy issues together with some comments from the Association of Convenience Stores and the National Federation of Postmasters. So it's an interesting input. But actually what was encouraging, hearing our colleagues in other small market towns, is we are doing extraordinarily well. You know, pretty much every idea that was discussed, every pilot that was shown, every idea, we've either thought about it and tried, or we are doing. There is very little. So it's frustrating in a way, because I can't say this idea we must try next year. There was nothing like that. There was nothing that good. But it does show that we've got to keep all market towns. We need to keep close eye on the economy. And we can't rest on our laurels. But I think we can actually be quite positive about Buckingham Town Centre. You know, you just have to look around the lack of empty units. You know, you go to any other market town that's close to seriously big cities. I mean, we've got Oxford and Milton Keynes and Northampton and Aylesbury all pulling our residents for different shopping destinations, but yet we still have a good broad core of shops and independents. So I think we still need to keep in touch with the RSN because they are a useful group, but I'm pleased to say that there were no new ideas that we need to think about at the moment.
Thank you, that's helpful. That's helpful.
That information is reflective. Since we've come out through COVID and out of COVID with the income that we've generated from the markets, and those who look at those things through the decisions we took in committee during COVID and the decisions we took around it, but actually those incomes have maintained and actually look like being very positive for this year. So it does show Buckingham in a different light to other, as Councillor White says, other market town. There's something different about Buckingham that which we should be pleased about.
Thank you. And thank you for attending that on our behalf. Item 16, mayoral engagements, to receive that list of events. I'm really happy to receive that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well done, Mayor. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Wish you could have attended the flag ceremony on the other way, but
Chair's announcements. Just to draw your attention to a particular campaign at the moment, the White Ribbon campaign, which is about the concerns about violence against women in particular. And that campaign is active at the moment. So if you do get the opportunity to support that campaign, that would be appreciated. Thank you. No other announcements. We've got the dates of the next meetings: interim council on the 20th of December, full council on the 17th of January, and full council on the 31st of January.